at what age should we take our kids to Malaysia? I'm like, now. You do not know what's happening in the future. If you're mentally in the position now to be able to do a trip, take it, because trust me, 3 years down the line, maybe someone's ill or your kid's in a professional sports team or something.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Design Her Travel podcast. I'm your host, Kim Anderson. As an avid traveler, global nomad, and someone who considers themselves a citizen of the world, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. My hope in creating this podcast is to inspire you to take the leap of faith and to design the life of your dreams. For me, that includes connecting with like-minded individuals and creating a community of souls living their best lives out in and around the world. Each week, you'll hear stories and conversations from fellow travelers who have figured out how to incorporate travel as a key component in their daily lives. Their stories are beautiful and inspiring, just like you. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. So let's do this. Here we go. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to today's episode of the Design Her Travel podcast. I'm your host, Kim Anderson, and I can't wait to dive into our conversation. Today I have on the show Jenny Lynn. She is a professional blogger from the UK who runs 4 different travel sites along with her husband, Jason. The couple traveled the world extensively before having kids, and when the kids came along, they didn't stop. This is a family who thrives on off-the-beaten-track adventure. They've lived in India and Morocco, trekked the Himalayas, backpacked Southeast Asia, overlanded sub-Saharan Africa, and have recently relocated to Penang through Malaysia's new digital nomad visa. Wherever they are in the world, they always aim to show their audience that family travel can be affordable, achievable, and done in a way that suits you best. So welcome to the show, Jenny. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hello, Kim, and thank you for inviting me on the show.
Yeah, I love it. We've had this in the works for months.
I know we have done. I think we started chatting just before I was about to leave the UK. And as anyone knows, when you're moving overseas, life is just nuts.
Yeah, there's already enough on life's to-do list besides moving continents.
Exactly. And add kids into the mix. And my head just wasn't working at all. So, but we're now settled in Penang and it's lovely to chat with you.
Yes, I'm super excited. And so that's where you currently are, in your new home in Penang. Is that right?
Yeah, we're in Penang. It's Wednesday morning here. I think it's Tuesday evening for you guys, isn't it? The sun's just risen and the kids have gone off to school and I'm chatting with you.
So fantastic. And so obviously we will get into all things family travel, but I would like to go back kind of to the beginning, because travel is not just something you do. Like, travel is a lifestyle for you and always has been for you and your husband. And so take us back to the beginning. Did you grow up traveling, or was it something that the two of you were just like, it started and fueled your fire? Like, take us back to the beginning of where this wanderlust started.
I think anyone who's traveled the way we do has always got that one trip that just kick-started it all. So growing up, living in the UK, just south of London in Kent, our holidays would always be to the countryside in the UK, the Peak District, which is, we called that home for a while with our kids. We'd be hiking in the hills, or we'd go camping in France. So we're brought up on very much an outdoor lifestyle. And when I was 18, I saw the opportunity to go to Kenya on a trip on my own and work with street kids in Nairobi, climb Mount Kenya, and just embrace Kenya. Now, this was a trip that was very, very foreign to me, but it transformed me into who I am today. And it's like, there's this whole world out there. I felt so comfortable doing it. I felt so happy. I felt so at peace with myself, and came back to UK, ended up meeting my husband in the second semester of my first year. And we ended up backpacking Malawi that summer together, soulmates on the same page. And we traveled ever since, like all throughout our 20s, all throughout our 30s. We took every available opportunity to travel. We lived in Italy together. We lived in New Zealand and Auckland. We did a trip overland, so from London to Sydney without using a plane. It's just who we are. It's just what we've always done. And people thought we're nuts. And we're like, this is just who we are. It just fitted in with that. So when the kids came along, we found ourselves back in the UK, and it had been drilled into us that, right, you're having kids now, you've got to settle down, which is probably why we put off having kids for so long, because we thought you couldn't travel with them. And within a few months of having our first child, we were like, yeah, sod that. And hit the road, went up to Scotland, did a road trip with him. The other one comes along and we find ourselves in Morocco for his first birthday, backpacking Thailand a few months later, and ended up moving to India shortly after that. So we had a little spell there in the middle where we thought, oh, can we do this? But it's just who we are. And so we just kept doing what we do.
And now it's who your kids are too. They're learning. I mean, the best education is being on the road and seeing things firsthand. And so your kids are so fortunate to have this lifestyle where they get to experience life, real life on the road, and not just through a book. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just, for our kids, it's so interesting because for them, it's normal. They don't appreciate it, and they won't appreciate it until it's older, but they're very comfortable with it. Like we've taken them out of school to travel Morocco. We took them out of school for half a term last year to go backpacking around Southeast Asia. There's never any, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. It's like, oh, that's what we do. And equally, there's not massive excitement about it because that's what we do. And then when we come back from these trips, they go back into school and their teachers are always like, it's like they've never left. And even here, so they've started a new school here in Penang. And within 2 days, their teachers are messaging us being like, it's like they've always been here. So I think travel has really helped them just adapt to different circumstances and something that they don't realize that they have from travel. Yeah, they just love it.
That's fantastic, because I think a lot of people who don't live this adventurous lifestyle and kind of have this concerns is always like, well, what about the kids? Like, and kids are adaptable, but that's a concern. Like, how do they go from place to place? And one of the things I loved when going through your blog, it's like, you don't homeschool while you're abroad. You use other forms of education. And so tell us about that, because other people would be like, wait, hold on, what?
So I always had this dream that, so before COVID happened, we were actually going to travel overland from the UK to Australia and do the same trip that Jay and I did back in 2007. We're going to do it with the boys. We had it all mapped out. We had interrailing tickets delivered by the postman one morning, went into school, and then Boris said, we're in lockdown. So that trip didn't happen. And on that trip, I always thought I was going to homeschool the kids. I had it in me, completely sucked out any form of homeschooling and teaching my kids that I ever had inside me. And I know that homeschooling is different on the road to being that, but I'm like, no, if you're homeschooling your kids, you've got to put so much time and energy into that. And I want to grow my business as well. And I haven't got the energy to do it. And my kids don't listen to me. Bottom line, they don't listen to me. So we did it through COVID and it was working. But when we kind of came out of COVID and we saw an opportunity to go to Morocco and take the kids out of school and do 4 months in Morocco, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this homeschooling thing. And an old university friend who was a primary school teacher had branched out to do online learning. So I messaged her and was like, do you want to teach my boys when they're in Morocco? She's like, yeah, that'll be awesome. I was like, how much time do you think they need? And she was like, honestly, half an hour of maths, half an hour of English. They'll be exactly where they should be with the British national curriculum. And I was like, really? She's like, yep, half an hour of each. That's all they need. And the boys, but just to top it up, the boys did something called this Doodle Learning app where it works out. It's just an app where they do maths, English, times tables and spellings every day. Literally just for 10 minutes. So not a lot. And this online schooling absolutely blew my mind of how far the boys leapt ahead in their academics, because Amy was giving them one-to-one tuition on exactly what they needed to learn and what they enjoyed learning, and was able to stretch them further than they could in school. So they actually ended up going ahead of their peers when they returned to school, which is nuts, really. So for anyone worried about the academics of taking the kids out of school, this is primary school, obviously. It gets different as the kids get older, obviously. So at this age, Arthur must have been 8 and Ezra had just turned 6. Yes, because he turned 6 in Casablanca. So yeah, it's very doable. You haven't got to homeschool your kids. But then also just traveling and the day-to-day interactions, they learn so much from that as well. Like eating different food in Morocco, they wanted a lollipop. I'm like, yeah, sure. If you want a lollipop, go and order it in French. It's just these little interactions every day build up the history, the religion. Surfing was PE lessons. People don't need to worry about taking their kids out of school, and you don't need to homeschool.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much about that. And it keeps it interesting for kids as well. Like kids aren't made to sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day and just be fed information. So I absolutely love that you're like 30 minutes a day. You're like, hold on, what are my kids doing in school then? If they're 30 minutes a day and they come out ahead.
Do you know, that's kind of the thing. I mean, but also my boys love school. So that's why we'd never do this long term. And it's why when we moved to Penang, we're like, let's find a school for them, because my boys do thrive in a school environment. They love hanging out with their friends and being part of sports teams and doing music shows and all that kind of thing. So for us, it's just a balance. And that's what I say to a lot of parents. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You really can pick and choose. The only problem in the UK is that if you're at a school that is oversubscribed and hasn't got any space, if you take your kids out, you won't get your kids back in. So that is something to think about for people in the UK. I don't know how it works across the pond. But for us, we purposely moved to a place where schools were undersubscribed, but they were good schools still. So we could get our kids in and out as and when we pleased.
That's fantastic. And so when it comes to choosing your next location or where you go, how do you pick your places? How do you make that decision? Are the kids involved in where you go? Did work take you to those places? Like, how have you made that decision over the years?
We find as the boys get older, they have more say in what we do. And this is the other reason why you should travel when your kids are young, because they don't argue when they're younger. So when we did Morocco, it was just a case of, okay, kids, we're doing Morocco. It was fine. And for them, back then, we had to go somewhere close to UK, like places were just coming out of COVID. But generally, we pick places where money goes further. So they're cheaper places to live. We also have to look at visas as well. So a big reason why we've done Malaysia this time is because of the digital nomad visa. So we can stay here longer. Often digital nomads can only do 3 months, 2 months, or sometimes less in a country at a time. For example, Vietnam only has a 45-day visa. Morocco is a 3-month visa. For us Brits now going into the EU, we're not legally allowed to work. So that comes down to it a lot, but it's very much cost of living, how it works with the visas. And we like places that offer a lot of diversity as well, and also that are good hubs. So when we lived in India for a bit, we lived in Bangalore, and Bangalore, you can get fantastic train network across India. You can fly to Thailand. It's the connections. But really, we see an opportunity and we don't think too much about it. It's more us living in Malaysia. That all started when we were on a failed ski trip back in January last year. Failed ski trip in that there was no snow because obviously climate change. And we're we're at the ski lodge, we're surrounded by mud and doing Harry Potter marathons. And my husband was just scrolling on his phone, came up with a Google alert saying that Malaysia had a digital nomad visa. And we're like, that's us. We can do that. So it's more just seeing the opportunity and take it when we can.
I love that. I love the free spirit, that movement. Just say yes and then go. You kind of figure it out along the way. And so let's talk about how you guys are able to have done this for so many years. Have you always been self-employed? Did you have remote jobs? How do you fund family travel and have the freedom to move around the world?
Okay. So my background is a bit all over the place. I have 3 different degrees, one in geography, one in GIS, which is maps on computers, which is before Google Maps came along, and another in music theatre. So I've had a range of different jobs running from software consultants, wine consultancy, acting, swimming coach, just all over the place. Whereas my husband, Jay, he's always done software engineering, he did his computer course at university. And he's had that job where he could quit and always find work wherever we go in the world. And when the kids came along, we found ourselves back in the UK. And my husband amazingly picked up a software engineer job very quickly again. And I was like, I've just moved back to the UK. I've got no contacts here. I couldn't work because we couldn't afford to send our kids to childcare, and we didn't have any other help around us for babysitting or anything. I mean, it's a huge problem in the UK with women going back to work. And it's like, it seems nuts. I couldn't afford to work. So when we started traveling with the kids, and I was in Thailand, and there's a friend in Sydney messaged me and was like, you guys need to start a blog. And we're like, what? But I didn't even know what a blog was. So I had to Google what is a blog. And all these people were messaging me saying, how are you doing Thailand with kids so young? What are you doing here? Where are you going? Blah, 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 blah. And we're sat, it's a place called Chantaburi, which is between Cambodian border and Bangkok. And we're sat there, kids are asleep, drinking a Chang beer over the river. And I just said to my husband, let's just start this and see where it goes. Let's just start writing a blog and just see what happens, because I need that creative outlet. I need to feel like I'm doing something else. I was finding it quite difficult returning back to UK and being a mum and not quite vibing with the mum friends because of who I am compared to, you get the story. So we started writing this blog, and then my husband, through his work, had the opportunity to move to India. So again, we saw the opportunity, jump it, let's do it. That's us, let's do it. So then I was writing a lot about traveling India with kids, and I could see this blog getting traction. And I then start learning about how you can make money from blogging. And it was just, this is going places. And then my husband's contract finished and decided it wasn't a company he wanted to go back to work with. So we quit our jobs and we decided to hire a Land Rover and overland Africa with the kids. They were 1 and 3 years old. And again, I'm writing about it. I'm talking about it. And the blog is gaining traction. And I'm like, this is really interesting. I wasn't really earning much money at all. I can't even remember how much, but it was negligible. It was just the odd bit here and there. And then after that, we decided to move back to the UK and move to the Peak District. And it was at that point, I was like, we're in the countryside. Again, I'm at a position where I can't work. I'm going to throw my all into this blog and just see where it goes. And that's exactly what I did. I grew the blog. I then started another blog. I then started another blog. I then started earning more than my husband. And I'm like, I've got so much here and this business can go so far. And it's 3:15. The alarm goes off to pick the kids up. My husband sat in a meeting just going, yeah, sure, yeah. The 5th meeting of the day. I have to drop everything, pick the kids up from school, bring them back, run them around because my husband's still in a meeting because he has a normal job. And we were like, this is just ridiculous. It's like, you're earning more money than me now. So when we were backpacking Southeast Asia last summer, we were on a train going down from Bangkok to the Malaysian border. And my husband was like, can I come and work for you? And I was like, yeah, let's make it happen. Again, it's just taking opportunities, seeing where we can grow things. My husband's always had work where he's like, right, I'll quit, we'll go. I'll quit, we go. Or he's negotiated remote working through his work. I've then built up this business to a position where like, right, we can see an opportunity now. We're very comfortable living off these 2 incomes. But what if this grew more? You helped me grow it more. And we lived somewhere where our money goes further. And here we are in Malaysia. We've just launched a 4th blog about Penang, which has just hit a target today, which means we're going to be able to get it on a really good ad agency. And last month was our best revenue month ever. And this month, June, is going to beat that. So there you go.
I love so much about that. I mean, I can relate so much to being the traveler that comes back and you're just like, how do I fit into this puzzle piece? I am not like any of these other pieces. It's very challenging. But I love how you have just said yes and kept doing it, and it just naturally grows. When I was start doing research before the interview, it was like, your blog is fascinating. And so I can't believe you have 4 blogs now. Like, that is wild. That just sounds like a whole lot of work. So how do you manage your time? Is it something that's so big that now you're just swamped with it? Or are you still able to like balance some of that time and lifestyle?
If you'd spoken to me this time last year, I was swamped. I was actually really stressed with it because Travelynn Family is my baby. That's my first blog. That's what I started when we were drinking those beers over the river in Thailand. So that will always be close to my heart. But when COVID happened, any income just dropped off a cliff. So I was like, right, we're living in the Peak District now, which is the UK's oldest national park. Let's start a blog about walks for families in this area, what families can do. And it completely took off over COVID. And I left Travelynn Family for a bit because we weren't traveling how we normally did because of COVID, obviously. And then as we came out of COVID, we realized we had the Morocco trip, and I was like, oh, let's just try something with a micro niche travel plot that's easy to manage and I can keep updated regularly to a place we know we'll go back to. Because Essaouira, so it's Explore Essaouira, is only a 3-hour flight from the UK. It feels a million miles away. It's beautiful. And so last year, I was like, I had Peak District Kids running, I had Explore Essaouira running, and Travelynn Family. I'd just forgotten about it because we weren't traveling as much like that anymore. We were a little bit, but then we had the big trip here. And I'm like, my God, we've got so much we can do with Travelynn Family. I've got this, I've got that. It was just really overwhelming. And I was just pulling these massive days. And once the kids were in bed, I was still working on them. And because I love it as well, it's not a case that I'm trying to do it because I want to earn money. It's just what I love. And it's just a big part of me as well. So how we manage our time now is, well, my husband quit his job. So since he's quit his job, it has been absolutely transformational to the business model. He is a much better writer than me, far better writer. I'm better at the social media, the management of how things fit on Google, the site structures and everything, and the imagery. So I still do a little bit of writing, but we just work amazingly as a team together. And we just plan our weeks as we should and make sure we have one day a week where we just go off and do something different, just the two of us away, because it can be all consuming blogging. And especially here being in Malaysia, we're ahead in time from a lot of our audience are European based. So here I'm not disturbed at all during my working day, but in the evening, ping, 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 ping. And it's like, oh, I want to answer that. I want to answer that. So it is all consuming. So I feel like, do you know what? I'll have full massive days where I work. Then we have days where we just leave everything to the side. And then we've got the summer holidays coming up. The boys finish school next Friday. And we're like, right, we cut back. We get everything sorted before the summer holidays. And we've got 7 weeks where we just sit back and we'll do a little bit here and there. We'll do our research notes. And I think that's the beauty of blogging. It's like you have to be very strict and disciplined with your time because it can just run away with you.
Yeah, especially when it's something that you love doing and it's hard to find the off switch sometimes. And now that you have your partner in life is now also your business partner. And so just brainstorming ideas, it would be like you would definitely have to have some boundaries because it could be just all encompassing. I love the way that you say yes, go for it. And then all of these miraculous things that have happened as a result. I think that's absolutely wonderful and so inspiring for people. So I love that your life is just constantly like, let's do it. You see the door and you walk through and you figure out whatever happens after that. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing of doing any change in life is actually making the decision to do it, especially if you're comfortable with your life. Change happens when you're peeved off, basically, and when you've had enough. But our life in the Peak District in the UK was very lovely, very, very lovely, like green rolling hills, boys at a lovely little village school. It was very, very pleasant. It's the most beautiful place in the UK and we love it. But we know the advantages of experience and how things just fall into place and opportunities happen. And honestly, could not be happier at the moment. And we weren't unhappy. We were happy. And now we're happier. Yeah, it's just taking those initial steps. Completely get what you're saying.
I love it. And so let's talk a little bit about traveling with family and traveling as a family, traveling with your kids. Some people are like, okay, how do we start? What are some things that if someone's looking at it, looking at your life, looking at your blog and thinking, oh, I might like to do that, but I'm not sure where to start. What would be some of the ways that people could start? And I know that traveling with family is totally different depending on how old your kids are. You started with primary school kids. So let's start with that. Like, you want to take a trip, what are some considerations or things that you wish you would have known starting out?
For us, it's just baby steps. I'm on some worldschooling groups and I can see people being like, we're selling our house, we're quitting our jobs, we've saved the money and we're traveling the world for a year. And then 2 months in, they're like, oh my God, this is so stressful. This is hell. It's just too much because you need to build up to that point because we'll have anxieties about something that's completely different. And I just find that it's the baby steps. I mean, for when you've got little ones, just do a camping trip for a weekend, see how that goes, then just go a bit further outside your comfort zone and a bit further and a bit further. And before you know it, you're pitching up your tent in Antarctica or something. It doesn't have to be one massive, gigantic step to sell everything. In fact, we're kind of like, don't sell everything up. Get yourself in a position where you're financially secure, because travel isn't continuous. It gets to a point where you need to slow down and you want to be in a place and have some roots, or your kids go to school or your kids find friends. It's that I do know families, some very good families, who are constantly traveling, and they are awe-inspiring. And so there are families that do it. But for the majority of people, it's perhaps not something you want to keep doing. So, and especially if you move back to the UK and try and get onto the property ladder, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. So try and keep hold on to your house, rent it out, find other ways, Airbnb it out or something. Make sure, rather than traveling Europe, go to Southeast Asia where your money goes further. Don't go to Australia. Again, I keep going on about Southeast Asia. India is very cheap as well, but I know that can be quite in your face for people. Sri Lanka's another place. It's like, and also with places like Sri Lanka, you have really nice tourist resorts as well. You haven't got to be on a tuk-tuk going between temples and getting lost. You can actually go to a resort and do little days out here or there, find your feet, and then next time you can do more. It's like with anything in life, you haven't got to take it on in one big fell swoop. Little baby steps, and just see where those baby steps take you.
Yeah, that's great. You're right. In place like Sri Lanka, where you can have like sort of normalcy of like a holiday sort of trip and also explore from there. I think that's super important when people, especially with the day and age of everyone living online, it's like people think they need to do this massive grand scale thing. And it's like, well, take a summer and explore a little bit.
Exactly. And the biggest thing is, if you start younger, it's easier. People think so many times about people messaging me, when do you think we should do Africa? When do you think, like someone messaged me just this morning, at what age should we take our kids to Malaysia? I'm like, now. You do not know what's happening in the future. If you're mentally in the position now to be able to do a trip, take it, because trust me, 3 years down the line, maybe someone's ill, or your kid's in a professional sports team or something, or they're so in with their kid. I mean, we have found this growing up now with our boys. They don't want us as much. They want to be with their friends. They want to be with their sports club. Like my eldest is football obsessed. And we've got a 7-week backpacking trip over the summer. And he's like, where will I be able to, is there a team I can, like, it's just, you have to meet their needs. Whereas honestly, when they're 1 or 2 years old, right, kids, we're going to go on a 3-hour safari. Okay. They're like, yay, elephant poo. Wow.
That's so great. I think I saw this on your social media. I'm not really sure, before you guys made the move to Penang, and it was so beautiful. And you said the lasts have to happen to make way for the first. And I think that is so beautiful, because it's almost like what you were talking about earlier. We were happy, but we're happier now. So you have to let go of some of these things in order to have the next thing. And so as you've traveled with your kids, and your kids have gone from school and gone back to school and made a lot of changes, how do your kids adapt? Or what are some of the ways that you've helped your kids learn how to adapt to letting go of the lasts and moving into the firsts?
So I think this move to Penang was the first time we actually had to work on it. Previously, they weren't too bothered at all. And I say they just got to that age where they just, like, my youngest was involved in Alice in Wonderland, the music theatre production, and he goes to his Lego club that he does. My eldest was doing goalkeeper training over in Sheffield and thinks he's going to be playing for England one day, as all kids do that age. But it was the first time we had to work at it. So with my eldest, he was absolutely destroyed after doing his last goalkeeper training over in Sheffield. He's a stoic kid, and he was sobbing his little heart out. And the next morning, I contacted a football club here in Penang. The manager of that club, the guy who runs it, he started sending us voice notes on WhatsApp and saying, "Hi, Arthur, can't wait for you to join us. This is what we're going to do. My son, he's now doing this. He's playing for the Malaysian team, blah, blah." And it was like, literally, I could see the weight lift off my son's shoulders. And he was excited. And this team he's at here in Penang, I mean, they've got a UEFA pro coach teaching them at the moment. He goes 5 times a week here. It is just another level. And he's absolutely enjoying it. So it was like, we had to make sure we'd found those opportunities for them to move into them when we came back. But another thing we did separately this time, which I hadn't done before, We were in Penang last July. So this is when we were just thinking about the plans, applying for this digital nomad visa. And I said to my husband, right, let's go and look around some schools because the boys need to see the schools. If they're not on board with this, this is going to be a hard sell. And we brought them to Penang. We looked around 3 different schools. And after looking around the schools, we're like, boys, we sat down as a family and we're like, right, boys, this is what we're thinking about doing. Are you up for it? They're like, yeah. So I think a lot of it is just as the kids have got older, bringing them into the conversation more and making them feel like they're part of the conversation. And bringing them into the conversation and then realizing that their opinions count, which is something we're now doing with travel as well. It's like the things we do as we're backpacking around. We're going to Vietnam for 7 weeks. We were thinking we might tag on Hong Kong at the end, or we might pop over to Chiang Mai or something. And Arthur was like, no, I kind of like the slow travel and just settling here. Is there any way we can do surfing anywhere? And I'm like, yeah. And Ezra was like, well, do you know what? If we put on Hong Kong on the end, then that's another big city. Maybe we should leave that for another weekend. They're just being involved in the conversation as they get older.
I love that. You know, when you were speaking about the football club and getting the voice notes and him having a blast going to these practices now, having that experience as they've grown, it's like they're learning that change can bring even more happiness. You know, like that's such a beautiful experience. So the next time they can look at it, oh yeah, remember that time we moved to Penang and I love that football club. You know, it's like it just plants the seed of like possibility. Change is not scary. Change can bring great things. So I love such a gift. And so we have time for one more question. And traveling with kids, I think, is so beautiful. And I love when you were talking about you thought you kind of waited to have kids because you were afraid you'd be able to travel with them. But now you have this incredible lifestyle full of adventure and all of this family fun and movement around the globe. And so what has surprised you the most or has been the greatest gift for you guys traveling as a family?
With surprises, I almost feel that something that's taken away from you when you do travel so much is the element of surprise dissipates because you've had so many experiences that you know how things are going to pan out and what to expect when you get to a new place. But that isn't a bad thing. I think it's just becoming one with the world and understanding the world better, really. But the gift for me, my husband would say the same thing, is it really is time. It's time on our own schedule. I know for a fact that I would never be able to work back in the corporate world. In fact, I left it when I was 25 and I'm 43 next week. So we're getting on for almost 2 decades. The reason I keep going in doing what we're doing is because for me, returning back to work for someone else, I just physically couldn't do it. I mentally couldn't do it. This has to work and it is working and I need to make sure it keeps working. And my husband's of the same mentality as well. The flexibility to choose that, right, summer holidays are happening. Let's stop everything. Let's spend 7 weeks all together as a family, backpacking around a new place. And then when we are at that new place, it's the fluidity of time to choose what we do each day, being able to decide to stay in a place longer rather than thinking, right, I've only got 2 weeks of annual leave, boom, 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 let's fit in as much as possible. Everyone's just going nuts because it's just too much to fit into those 2 weeks. Right, back to work, everyone. For us, time is the absolute gift of all this.
Yes, I love that you said the fluidity of time. I mean, that's the key. I think it's no matter what, you want to have the time in your day to enjoy it. That's what time's for, that's what life's for. And to have that gift to spend quality time together as a family where you're present with one another, you're learning all the time and you really get to be a tight family unit. And I think that's such a gift. So I love that that's your takeaway, really. And so with that, let's move into the lightning round. So the first question is, what is a travel tip for your current location?
Travel tip for our current location, just eat. Just everywhere you go, try something new. Just eat and be prepared to sweat. It is hot here.
I love it. Yeah. Eat and sweat. I remember both of those things when I was in Penang.
And be prepared that the eating makes you sweat more as well. So.
But they have those delicious desserts on ice with the sweet gummy things and the coconut cream. I was taken to one of those dessert shops. I was a little skeptical, like, I don't know, what is this all about? Looks like a bowl of ice. And then I was like, oh my goodness, it's kind of like crack. Like it's so hot outside. And this is like just the right amount of sweet. I have no idea what they're called, but I would eat one of those right now.
Yep, absolutely.
And the second question is, what is a book that has inspired you possibly to live this extraordinary life or just inspired you in life in general?
I actually feel like there wasn't a book growing up. I think so many adventure explorer books growing up were of old white men from the UK conquering other lands. I mean, you've got Michael Palin, he's awesome. It's like I grew up being told that women can't travel with their kids. There was no inspiration. But what enabled me to travel the globe back in the day, the Lonely Planet guides, weren't they incredible? It was like you didn't have blogs, you didn't have Google, you didn't have Google Maps. The only guide, it was the Bible. It was the Bible back then. And it's sad that it isn't what it was back then. And life has changed and blogs actually are what people use. But if there was a book that not necessarily inspired me, but enabled me back in the day to lead this life, it was the Lonely Planet books. Yes.
I remember when you would get one or you'd find one in a country that you hadn't been yet and you could like flip through and they'd be dog-eared.
In fact, we've bought one for our upcoming trip to Vietnam and I'm looking through and I'm like, where's all the detail? They've stripped out the detail. It's more like a glossy cell of Vietnam now rather than hardcore backpacking. This is where to get the cheap noodles. Yeah, it's changed, but as all businesses have to change, that's what they've done.
And let's see, question number 3 is, what is something that you always take with you, you never leave home without? Doesn't matter where your trip or how long it is, you never leave home without this.
Probably my bum bag. I love having my passports there, my phone's there. Do you call them fanny packs?
Yes, fanny packs.
Fanny packs, bum bags. I don't know, the 80s are coming back, but I've been continuing with the 80s through the 90s, noughties, but I've been with my bum bag for decades now, and I love my bum bag / fanny pack.
Fantastic. The last question is, what is on the top of your bucket list for adventures or destinations?
The place I want to go, bucket list. Oh, Antarctica. Antarctica. It's the place that it feels so unreachable still. It's so expensive to get there. Somewhere we've never been, and it's just so different from the rest of the world. So whenever I'm asked this question, I will always say Antarctica. No idea when I'm going there, got no plans of going there anytime soon. But one day, Antarctica. I'll send you a picture of me with a penguin.
Nice. Well, maybe with all of your beautiful growing travel blogs, you can get a sponsored trip to Antarctica as a family adventure. I mean, put it out there, right?
Yeah, put it out there. Anyone listening?
Yes, sponsored family trip, please. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I am so inspired seeing people that are living truly authentic lives, best for their family unit, exploring the world and sharing it with others. It's such a gift, and your enthusiasm for life is amazing. So thank you for sharing it with me today, and thank you for sharing it with all of us. Also, where can people find you or connect with you online?
So our main blog, where you'll find our day-to-day adventures of living in Penang and our upcoming backpacking adventure to Vietnam and past things we've done. So Travelynn Family. So my surname's Lynn. So back in the day when we were drinking those beer changs over the river, we were like, Lynn's our surname, Travelynn Family. We're like, wow, that's clever. But then whenever you need to spell it out to people now, it's really quite complicated. So it's travel, YNNfamily.com. I'm always on Instagram. I'm always on Facebook. And then we put all our guides out on our website. So we have all our itineraries on there, our what to packs. It's more the factual information where people can then, if they're thinking about going to Malaysia or Cambodia or Malawi or Iceland or something, they can go on there, see our itinerary, what we recommend, our accommodations. Whereas Instagram is more, you'll get to know us and who we are as a family.
As I mentioned before, your website's amazing. You have so much good information. Whether you're a family or not, there's fantastic information. So everybody will check it out. And of course, we'll link it in the show notes. So thank you very much. I love that conversation so much. I love Jenny's enthusiasm for life. And here are the key takeaways. Number 1, don't wait to travel with your kids. Start early. It's so much easier than you might imagine when you start when they're really young. Number 2, homeschooling isn't the only option for educating your kids on the road. Online or local schools can work just as well and sometimes even better. Number 3, the gift of traveling as a family is time. That's something you can never get back. Number 4, Saying yes to opportunities when they present themselves can lead to an amazingly adventurous life. Number 5, the world is school, and travel provides a great education. And number 6, don't wait to do something. Do it now. Whatever that is you're dreaming about, do it now. You don't know what will happen in the future. The quote that I would like to leave you with today is from Deshauna Barber. And she said, "Do not fear failure, but please be terrified of regret." I think that that is such a beautiful statement. Jenny and her family have lived an adventurous life full of time together, exploration, and things that many might look and say, this isn't a typical, normal, quote unquote, family style of life. But I guarantee there's one thing. When you live your greatest dreams, is that doing that, when you get to the end of your life, you won't be filled with regret. Instead, you'll be filled with love and memories and stories about things that you have done that lit you up, that filled your heart with so much joy, that brought smiles to your face, that were memories that you cherish forever. So don't let that fear of failure stop you. Let the fear of regret motivate you. I know you have a dream in your heart right now, and you have everything it takes inside of you to make that happen. Let this be a reminder that you can do it. I know you can. You've got this. Keep going. And until next time, my friends. Thank you so much for showing up and listening to this episode. I know that there are so many things in life that you could be doing right now. And so it means a lot to me that you're here. There are so many more episodes coming your way. So if you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to review and follow us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know someone who might like to hear it, please share. Those little acts of kindness mean a lot and help more than you know. I appreciate your time and getting the opportunity to share this moment. I'd love to hear more from you. I'd love to connect, so reach out on social. You can find me on Instagram at seafaringwanderer. That's SEAFARINGWANDERER. And then you can join our Facebook group at Design Her Travel Podcast. I would love to connect, hear more from you. Let me know what you'd like to hear more of, places you'd like to hear about, and things you'd like to know how to do when designing your life. So thank you, everyone, and I'll be back soon.